Hi, my name's Rhia, and this is The Pursuit of Advertising. Advertising really started to boom in the 1960s to keep the general consensus of the time cheerful, optimistic, and at times revolutionary. Advertising is now more influential than ever. So much so that without it, modern culture would not have progressed to the extent that it has. Are there any adverts that have successfully persuaded you to purchase any products, and if so, which one and why?
I think any adverts that persuade me are the KFC ones.
There has been, and it's this one by L'Oreal, which is a makeup brand. And me and my family, we take the mick out of it all the time because there's a voiceover over the model speaking, and it's just ridiculous. Like the sound it's just hilarious. And it's a little bit embarrassing, but I actually bought the product because it made me laugh so much. I was like, you know what, I'm going to try it. It's really good. Why?
No, I don't think so.
I'd say makeup adverts are usually the most successful with me, because if I see an advert on TV for makeup, for example, if I'm in the shop and I see something that I recognise, I'm more likely to buy it probably.
So Rhia was supposed to host this on her own, but she wanted help, so I'm gonna help her.
When did I ask for help?
As aforementioned, advertising really started to boom in the 1960s to keep up with the general consensus of the time, which was happy. Carson was popular. Sinatra had just founded his own label under Warner Music Group, and Dr. Seuss published Green Eggs and Ham. I like to imagine it looked something like Boardwalk Empire, or at least BioShock. Yeah.
Would you like to talk about advertising?
I was getting to that. I mean,
let's go.
Isn't this your idea?
Okay, let's go.
Okay. The history of advertising goes back a long way to 1704, when the first newspapers were printed thanks to the Gutenberg press. By the mid-1800s, we had billboards and advertising agencies in operation, and by the end of the 1980s, companies like Kodak started selling their brands as well as their products. Screeching Criers were the first to vocally announce products and services, thus making the first adverts. And obviously, advertising wouldn't be what it is without a couple of flops, like the Ford head cell. You heard of that?
Nope.
Never?
Nope.
Okay, let me show you.
Educate me.
I will. This is the Ford head cell. What do you think of it? Elias Pen.
I don't think that's the correct term. It looks like a hairdryer.
Okay. They thought this car would be special because it boasted a bunch of modern technologies that would make it so technologically advanced that everyone would want to drive it. And what's worse is it competed with its own products. The Edsel was sold in the same price range as the well-known Mercury, which, have you seen it?
Nope.
It looked like the Batmobile, I swear down. And for that and many, many other reasons, it was discontinued. Continuing with the theme of advertisement history, there was also the barber pole. The premise behind it? Disgusting. It came about when practitioners performed bloodletting from people and was a visual representation of bloody bandages being wrapped around the pole. When the English-born United Barbers Surgeons Company formed, it was a requirement for barbers to use a red, white and blue pole to identify their officers. Which is also why cool people say they're having surgery instead of getting their hair cut. Here's another useless fact. Did you know that the world's tallest barber pole is in Forest Grove, Oregon, home to the tallest barbers?
No, I did not.
Okay. That enough ad talk for you?
Yes.
Now it's your turn.
Fine. Obviously, advertising has an influence. Who would buy a product if they didn't know it existed? Advertising pushes a product or service into the hearts and minds of consumers. Influence goes beyond just informing people.
That's right. Nowadays, advertisers have to use a whole host of seemingly underhand tactics in order to sell the product they're trying to. Take praise, for example. When advertisers promote something, you'll often hear a testimonial or something like that which makes the product seem amazing, and the effect it has on us is that we associate positives with it because we haven't had someone to talk bad about it. Even people who say they won't buy a product like Rhia here, they'll look it in a positive light. Did you know that the #1 word or phrase in the entire world for any person who can dictate their thoughts is okay?
And?
The #2 phrase? Coca-Cola. That's it. You know what? Nah. Since you're so impatient, you can explain.
I would assume it's because of their one brand strategy. because Coca-Cola aimed to market all of their drinks, all 150 plus of them, under the Coca-Cola umbrella. It creates a monopoly in the market.
You seem a lot smarter than I remember.
I've always been smart.
Right? Okay. Is it harmful? Peer pressure is prevalent in teens because it just is. Teenagers are the only ones who would be dumb enough to purchase something on a whim because a friend or several friends have the same thing. Just because it's pervasive with teenagers doesn't mean it doesn't affect adults too. Especially in the workplace too. Did you know that 85% of all adults can't say no to something when they're working? Like if they're asked to say something. Neither did I. That fact doesn't exist.
As a media teacher, what is your stance on marketing techniques?
I think they are good. I think you get a wide range of kind of different types of adverts out there. Some that are really funny, some that are very controversial and should be banned and ultimately do get banned. I think advertising is a good thing because actually a lot of small businesses really benefit from it and they become more popularised. I think that, you know, they can really help and benefit people, but there's also the kind of setbacks as well with these kind of PPI adverts and things like that, which are kind of really playing on people's fears a lot, and these kind of adverts where, you know, insurance or money will give you a loaning company, loaning sharks. And I think they're quite dangerous to vulnerable people, I think. So I think if you've got that kind of scepticism with advertising, then it's a good thing. But I think there are vulnerable members of society that might be kind of swept away with it and easily taken in by it, and therefore it can be quite a bad thing as well. So I think as long as there's regulations making sure that these companies are not trying to con people, then I think it's a really good thing.
So as a whole, you think it's ethical?
Yes, I think so. I think actually, especially in this country, we have a really good system called Ofcom, and they are basically responsible for all broadcasting regulation and rules, and the AQA, which is the Advertising Standards Authority, and they will basically ban adverts that they deem irresponsible to public use. And there was an advert a few years ago that Nike did, for example, where there is a young vulnerable woman running for the forest in her Nike trainers, running away from a serial killer. And that got banned. And like, that should be banned because that's like mixing fiction with, reality. And I think that's quite misleading, really. But it is quite funny when you watch the advert. So again, but then again, there's this one advert. I don't even actually know what it was selling, but it was like a dog that had basically made love to this other dog, and then made a family of dogs. And he comes home after running away to live with the owner, and you don't even know what it's advertising. So it swings and roundabouts. But I think we're in a really good state in this country, whereas some other countries you hear a lot that they've let adverts be played. Like for example, there was this Paris Hilton advert where she's basically cleaning and washing a car quite sexually inclinedly, and she's eating a burger as well, and it's just. That was allowed for some time until people actually really got around it. So, I think as a country we're really lucky to have such good regulation, and that's the key.
So all in all, do you think it helps or hinders in terms of achieving what it needs to?
I think it helps in achieving, any kind of advertising will do, whether it's a poster or whether it's a TV advert. Any kind of advertising campaign is going to help business. It's whether it's hindrance to the public who are consuming it. I think most of the time, we've got a happy balance in this country, yeah.
So based off your response, you'd agree that that marketing and the techniques used are good and bad? Yeah, absolutely. I would definitely agree with that, yeah. So what about underhand subliminal messages? I can assume that you know more about it than I do. Absolutely, yeah. So you see things like with posters, even like not even with advertising, like in films you can see subliminal messages as well. Like there's this thing on some of the Disney films where the word sex is involved as well. So I think that is wrong, but I think that's more banned nowadays. I think earlier in advertising history it wasn't so much, and I think that's wrong, basically. That's where I think advertising like that should just draw a line. But then you've kind of got these adverts where they
So for example, I saw one the other day actually, because I'm teaching it again this year, where there was a Nescafe advert with a mug of coffee, and it was shaped like an alarm clock, and that's suggestive as well, you know, whether that's like suggestive in a sort of really implicit way. It's not really so much, it's kind of making the two of the link that you would need coffee in the morning, but I think it depends how harmful it's going to be. I don't think that is likely to be harmful. If it's not going to cause some kind of addiction or something like that, it's okay. So it's really, really hard to judge because it's such a wide field, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Considering that you agree predominantly that marketing is good, what about pressure to purchase, either through peer pressure or through misinterpretations and stereotypes?
Yeah, I think that's a really, really important subject, especially with the young, who are more vulnerable. I think you have to be really careful about how you're advertising stuff and what time of day it should be advertised at. Because I think a young person's more likely to get on a... You know, you only need to see, actually, if you go into any school, most kids have got a phone. They're going to have mostly an Apple phone. And that's the power of advertising coming out to bite everyone, you know. And so they probably see those adverts which are quite quirky and quite cool and kind of aimed a little bit at them, and everyone's like, yeah, I'm going to get the new Apple phone, even though that probably isn't going to be the best phone in the market. I'm not saying it's not one of the best. It could be the best to some people, but their advertising campaign has made them that mainstream. And so I think with young people who are more vulnerable, they need to be looked after, and there should be more regulations for that. And there are some, but I think it could be probably a little bit tighter in that kind of particular field.
And with relation to the idea of having like loads of students having iPhones and etc. due to their advertising techniques, don't you think that there's an excessive amount of consumption these days? Absolutely,
yeah. The whole of our society is quite materialistic, I think. More so than it was, you know, even like 5 years ago. It's very much an I want it now market. You only have to look at things like Amazon, where you know you basically get Prime and you can get something delivered the next day. I mean, that's absolutely insane. Like I have a Prime account. I'm actually a Prime user as well, which is really bad. And my husband is. Every day I get a new package from Amazon. I'm like, oh, here we go again. But that's what I mean. We have become such a consumeristic society, and even if that's a word. And I think it's quite sad in a certain way, actually, really. But I guess advertising is the kind of blame for that as well. But I don't know, it's also a generational thing with technology. I think it all feeds into each other. I don't think it's just advertising to blame, although advertising does, I think, get a lot of blame for it.
And lastly, as a media teacher in a secondary school, it's commonly known that children are easily influenced. And I found out, according to a study conducted by A.T. Kearney, in the UK, 39% of younger consumers are regularly active on social media, and 26% are active on online entertainment. So that's over half of young consumers that are exposed to things that may cause feelings of pressure to be or look a certain way, for example. What's your stance on that?
I absolutely kind of I agree with that statistic. I mean, I know it's a statistic, so it's true, but yeah, it's you only have to watch something like Geordie Shore, right, where it's everywhere. Like, I had a student yesterday, and she's making a magazine, and she was like, what do I do a topic about? I was like, well, I knew you was a Geordie Shore, blah, blah, blah. She's like, how do you know them? I was like, well, because they're everywhere. On the internet, they're in magazines, they're everywhere. I do happen to watch Geordie Shore as well, but which is just so embarrassing as it being my age as well, because of the stuff that they kind of get up to, but like, it's kind of good in some ways because it kind of keeps me a little bit relevant as to what young people get up to these days. That's just actually ridiculous. Like things like Snapchat and things like that. You know, I don't have a Snapchat account, but the principle of it, I kind of get why young people don't like it, because it's quite instant. And gratifying, you know, for them to be straight away like, oh, record something, that's mine, got it, put it out there. But at the same time, when they're older and they're a bit more self-reflective, they're going to hate that, you know, that history is there. And, you know, even when I first opened a Facebook account, I was so warned about the implications of it. And you get this kind of time feed now where you said this 5 years ago, and I was just cringing at myself, like I'm such an embarrassment. So how are they going to feel? So everything is about materialistic things. And why I was mentioning the Geordie Shore lot is that, you know, those girls are evident of the fact that the media and the society that they are living in, or the limelight that's been thrown into, has made them feel insecure about how they look, even though they don't need to feel like that. And if they feel like that, how do young people feel? And they are a role model to young people, and I can't say it doesn't worry me that people would watch that show and think, I need to go get a nose job to make myself think that I look pretty, when actually, you know what, they're just perfect the way they are. So it does worry me, and I think, you know, and in the case of them again as well, you see them on Twitter and they're advertising products for people like protein shakes, or, you know, look at my nose job doctor, he is amazing. And it's like, that worries me, that there's this new kind of insipid way of advertising that's like a bit kind of soul destroying for people, which they won't realise that now. You know, maybe they might feel better when they get their new nose, who knows, you know, and if they're really clinically depressed and that's going to make them feel better, then I've not got an objective about it, or I'm not objective to it, but what worries me is that they will advertise these products in order for these big companies to win and for that celebrity to win, and young people might not really realise that. So I think that's in a way where advertising can be harmful, and there should be more restrictions on that. And because the internet's not being restrictive enough, I think that's going to be our next cycle of problems, that needs to be more heavily kind of monitored. Twitter is the next one, I think, and Snapchat. That's why Snapchat is as bad, but Twitter certainly is. It's awful for that.
Well, thank you for